Can I just come back to you, this issue about inflation now, high inflation, gap in wages, interest rates going up, underlying inflation, which is about the things we buy in the grocery shop, the things we can't afford to do without. Who's this going to affect at the polls? Is this going to affect government? Rightly or wrongly, they tend to blame government, don't they?
They do tend to blame the government, and Scott Morrison at the moment is getting the blame for everything from bushfires to floods to people losing socks in the washing machine, which is unfair. And those premiers, those buggers who are premiers, are certainly playing political games. So the government will be held accountable for our economic management over the last 3 years. So we've got to own what is happening. But my case to you and to your viewers this evening is that we got Australia through COVID. We got through this pandemic, the worst pandemic in 100 years. You and I will probably talk a bit about spending, which I think we're probably on a unity ticket there. So we've got to take the good with the bad there in terms
just on spending then, James. Spending accelerates inflation. More money in circulation, chasing fewer goods, and price goes up. That's why there's a housing crisis. The prices have gone up, all sorts of incentives to the buyer, but the states are responsible for the supply of housing stock, and there's not enough housing stock. How's this issue going to pan out? Spending.
Well, spending in terms of, let's look at housing. You're so right about the states control housing supply. I mean, just look here in Queensland, when Kate Jones was running against Campbell Newman back in 2015, she was going on one of her issues in the seat of Ashgrove was stopping housing developments. And then came into government and stopped the housing developments happening, not just in Ashgrove, but across Queensland. This is an issue we're going to deal with in terms of not just the inflation of goods going up, but what's happening with people's wages.
Yeah, I reckon if the government went to the nation, if Scott Morrison went to the nation and said, listen, I got bad news, but you want me to tell you the truth, we're living beyond our means, and we are going to, you elect us, and we will cut expenditure to make sure that our lives in the future are more affordable and more beneficial. And I reckon people would, like the Catherine Deves issue, the voters that support the government, out there, 90% of them say girls must be playing against girls. I mean, I think they're very powerful points out there in the electorate.
I think being an economic conservative has become unfashionable, and that upsets me. You and I and others who will come on your program all believe, as we live within our budgets, the government should live within its own budget. And I think it's been a failure of government across Australia that we just think this is a magical money tree at the bottom of the garden.
Good on you.
And the government's done some very good things during COVID, but COVID has also provided an alibi for poor government spending at a state,
very good point,
and sometimes at a federal level.
Very
I can
good
say
point.
that as a backbencher.
Let's just quickly. Very good point. Let's just quickly, before we go, and we're running out of time, but with your knowledge of the coalition around the country, have a very quick whip around how you see things. WA?
WA, you're going to get the Mark McGowan bounce there. It's going to be very tight in the seats of Swan and Pearce.
South Australia?
Boothby, once again, going to be very tight. I'm told that Sturt should be okay.
Tasmania, Bass and Braddon?
The preferences, decisions of Jackie Lambie and One Nation will play there. I think both those seats will be very tight, but we should hold them.
Victoria?
Really interesting here. Some interesting things happening in those Labor seats. Daniel Andrews is on the nose. If we had lots of money, you'd be spending on Hawke. But yeah, Corangamite and Dunkley are in play.
New South Wales?
Oh, God knows. Just New South Wales drives me nuts. And those teals, we've forgotten about the teals and the damage they're causing.
Absolutely.
They're a bunch of fakes and liars. So there's a caveat there. But, people keep talking about Shortland as an interesting seat. What's happening in the Hunter? So, people shouldn't be slitting their wrists. This election is all to play for.
Good on you. Great to talk to you, James. And we'll try and talk again before May 21. But thank you for the insights. You're spot on. You're spot on. I mean, what James is making the point, the coalition has to hold every seat it has and win one. So there we are. That's James McGrath, a Queensland senator who knows his stuff.